On farms across Australia, a battle is unfolding. Activists are demanding that farmers stop grazing animals for human consumption. But their tactics are controversial. Trespassing on agricultural properties, stealing livestock, and intimidating farmers.
How the hell do you sleep at night?
As tensions rise, 101 East investigates the bitter divide over Australia's farm animals. It's just before dawn in Australia's southern city of Melbourne, and activists are gathering.
Thank you all so much for being here. It's very early. I don't know how you all got here, but
Kristin Leigh is about to lead more than 100 people in a protest that will disrupt the city, all in the name of animal rights and the environment.
Animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. It is destroying our planet completely. So today is about making it clear that this is an emergency.
What brings you out here?
Farm animals, we condemn them to a life of slavery, a life of misery, and exploit them for our own being simply because we have the power to do so. And we are trying to change this.
A lot of the meat-eating community think that veganism is about your dole-bludging hippies, but here we are, we're just ordinary people who have jobs. People of all walks of life want to stop eating animals.
Vegans don't eat or use any animal products, believing all living beings are equal. The ultimate aim of today's protest is to stop animal farming. They've been mobilised by a documentary, which activists say was secretly filmed at Australian farms and abattoirs.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have designated time.
As the sun begins to rise, Kristin rallies the troops for the day's action.
It might feel a bit hectic. We don't know what to expect when we get there. So just try to stay calm. As long as we stay peaceful and here for those animals and for humans, because we all know this is a human justice issue as well, and for the environment, we will win.
She leads a group of activists towards Melbourne's city centre.
We have stopped traffic. We have shut down Melbourne CBD.
A group of about 200 people have managed to shut down the centre of Melbourne at peak hour. There are police and there are angry commuters who are all just trying to go about their day. But these protesters are planning to stay here for as long as they can. Some members of the public decide to take part in the protest.
I just felt really moved to join in straight away when I saw what this was about.
Others are unimpressed.
It's an absolutely stupid way to get your point across.
They're saying that a moment of inconvenience is worth it.
Won't change a thing. I really don't believe it'll change one thing.
One thing it is doing is raising the profile of the animal rights movement. What does this action make you think about the vegan movement?
Well, it does give it some presence, that's for sure. So from that perspective, it's worked for them. I don't know if there's a different way to do it, obviously not.
We're making a stand. I mean, people are already walking past us, yelling and screaming at us, so we know we're being noticed, we're being heard.
You're all a bunch of... Guys, you need to clear the intersection or you've been placed under arrest, okay? You need to move now.
That's everybody, including the media. Move off the road or you will be arrested.
What do we want?
Animal liberation! Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation! Now! Animal liberation! Now!
Kristin is one of 39 people arrested. The Melbourne demonstration is one of 9 events taking place across the country today, at abattoirs and in public spaces like this one. They're part of a string of controversial protests which have attracted the attention of the entire country, including the Prime Minister, who has called the actions against farmers un-Australian.
Well, I think state and territory governments should ensure that the full force of the law is brought against these green-collared criminals.
An animal rights group called Aussie Farms has been accused of encouraging these types of trespassers by publishing the addresses of animal farms and abattoirs in an online map. Outraged farmers say it's a breach of privacy, endangering their animals, homes and employees, and are demanding the map be taken down.
Get off my country!
2 months after the map was published, about 100 activists stormed this cattle feedlot and dairy farm in Queensland, in the country's north.
The only reason you're upset because you've got something to hide.
The protesters occupied the property for more than an hour, filming and verbally abusing the farmer and his family.
So how do you feel about taking babies? Do you know those mothers cry? You've heard them many times. Are you a mother? If you're a mother, how do you live with yourself doing this to animals?
How would you feel if we took you from your mother?
10 people were charged with trespass, 8 were fined.
Up.
Dawn is breaking at the Gippy goat farm, about 2 hours' drive from Melbourne. It's home to about 2,000 goats. Owner John Gommans is watching on as workers herd the animals into the milking pen.
Have many kidded yet? How many? 5. We'll keep them going on.
This dairy is part of his multi-million-dollar business, which produces goat milk to make yogurt, cheese and baby formula. It's been the target of several animal rights protests.
They're not activists, they were thieves. They came straight onto the property to the little petting area and they loaded animals in the car.
Last December, around 70 activists broke in and stole 3 goats and a lamb, including a limping goat they named Angel.
You're going to help her? If you're not, I'm coming in.
Now people make a big deal out of the fact that out of 2,000 goats, Angel had a sore foot. Right? Well, if you have 2,000 individuals, right, I don't care whether it's people, cats, goats or cows, anything, not all of those 2,000 are perfect at every time. Just because you've got a limp doesn't mean you haven't been treated or under a recovery. But they didn't know that.
Unlike many farmers who've been targeted, John decided to go public, posting security footage of the raid online.
A lot of farmers that we've spoken to appear in this program have declined because they were afraid of becoming a bigger target. You've gone the opposite way. Why?
Well, we were one of the few farmers that, if you like, had Facebook or a media profile, and you know, we had the ability to fight back and to create some sort of public reaction. So that's why we did it. Farmers in Australia being hit and they have no ability to fight back, and they annoyed me enough to fight back. Well, this is the kid rearing barn, this little one. There's only 4 or 5 because it's still very early days. They're pretty cute, to be honest.
But it has come at a cost.
Would you like to hold one?
Yes. John and his staff began receiving constant online abuse, threats of violence and intimidating phone calls. So he decided to close the farm's popular cafe and petting zoo.
People would do that all day long. It used to give us a lot of pleasure. You know, you see half a dozen or a dozen people lined up feeding the little goats or wanting to cuddle them. It's very satisfying as a farmer. Who wants to be invaded and have your animals stolen and be the subject of slander on Facebook? Yeah, so this is the old entryway into the Kippy Cake.
This is what's left of the cafe?
This is what's left of the, well, this was the servery area, and we're in the process of converting it back to a domestic home. You can see this, we've still got the
Still got
special
the
sign.
specials wall,
That was a
yeah.
little bit high to wash off. Callers were telling the staff, why are you working there? You're abusing all these animals, you're doing all these things wrong. And you don't do that to your staff, you know. As employers, we have responsibilities. One call that sticks in mind was...
And sometimes the threats got very personal.
A man rang me and he said, Joseph here, listen here, you piece of if this continues, it's going to be all about you. We're coming down to get you.
7 activists were charged in relation to the incident. So far, only one has been fined, for a total of $2.
I was appalled by what happened. I thought that was a total miscarriage of justice and never sent a signal to anybody that you're not allowed to come onto a farm and steal animals.
Kristin says she wasn't involved in the Gippy goat farm incident, but admits she's stolen animals while trespassing on farms and at abattoirs.
So did you want to look at this bird before you walk away?
Some of them she now keeps in her backyard on the outskirts of Melbourne.
These white ones here, they're called broiler chickens by the industry. So they were rescued from a slaughterhouse, 3 from one and 1 from a truck on the way into the slaughterhouse.
So you would say that these animals have been rescued, but the people you've taken them from would say that you've stolen them. What would you say to that?
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can steal a life when you're giving them sanctuary.
Kristin tells us she feels the tactics used by animal rights groups are confronting but necessary.
How would you feel if a group of, say, 100 people came onto your property and started to walk through it and wouldn't leave when you asked them to? Would you find that intimidating? I mean, how would you
absolutely feel? I'd find it intimidating. I can see why people do. Absolutely. I can understand that people will feel confronted by that because, you know, this is their everyday thing they do, and they want to be in that mindset, and we're challenging that mindset. But I feel like the end objective justifies that. I feel like we're not going to get there easily. There's going to be some people who feel intimidated. They're going to feel threatened.
So more calls, more concerning behaviour from the extremists.
Tony Marr of the National Farmers Federation says animal rights activists have gone too far.
We've got no problem with people having different views and different philosophies. It's when they force them and apply them to the broader community and expect the community to align with those views is where we run into problems.
He says farming is critical to the Australian way of life and will stay that way.
It is so embedded in our identity of, you know, whether that's the outback or whether that's hard work or whether that's the bush. You know, it's still very inherent in all that we do.
We asked Tony if he feels footage filmed by animal rights activists has played any role in helping improve the treatment of farm animals.
We should call out bad behaviour, no question about that. And our industry has a responsibility to call out bad behaviour and illegal behaviour, and that illegal behaviour includes breaking the law, break and enter, and trespass onto private property.
But how can anyone find out about these bad practices if these illegal actions don't take place?
Well, that's a bit of a circular argument. I mean, we, as I said, we need to call out bad behaviour and bad practice. It's unacceptable.
Just outside Melbourne, we meet one man who's been speaking out against animal rights activism for years.
Yeah, this is to show who actually started it.
Brian Ahmed is a proud second-generation farmer.
So that's my mum and dad up the top there in the early stages. That's actually a photo of us the year we bought the farm. So that's me on the right.
Brian's family-run operation is just one supplier of the almost 17 million eggs Australians eat every day. It's a legacy he wants to leave to his children. His daughters Danielle and Renee are taking over parts of the business, including this cafe and a retail store.
One good thing about having 2-3 eggs in the morning, you're right for the day.
Brian works in one of the most targeted areas of animal production, caged egg farming. He's had activists trespass on his property, and one of his biggest concerns is that they could compromise his flock.
We're going to need to put this on before we go into the sheds.
This is for
Those are
biosecurity?
biosecurity reasons, because the health of our birds is most important.
So if you get someone coming onto your farm and tries to break into the sheds
Yeah.
and they're not wearing something like this, how much of a risk is it to your animals?
That's a big risk. Because of the way we've got our birds housed, if we end up with any virus in there, it's going to spread fairly quickly. There, they lay their eggs.
Caged farming has a bad reputation as compared to free-range farming.
Yes.
How do you try to counter that?
Well, look, first of all, they're in cages to take them away from their feces. They're separated from their feces, so that reduces the risk of disease. We also put them in cages because we're protecting them from the predators. So what we've done is we've improved their welfare.
What about the animal activist argument that we shouldn't be using chicken to lay eggs at all?
Yeah, well, I guess that's their idea, but as a farmer, I would prefer to have food to feed everyone, and I don't want to see families in a position where they haven't got food to feed their children. I've been a target for many years. This is why I've been training my daughters. They have to grow a little bit of thick skin because there is a percentage of people that will never like what we do. And I can accept that. My concern is the real farmers, which are our children, we don't need to scare them away from the farm. We need them for the future supply of food for people.
He says even though he's been sounding the alarm about activists trespassing on farms for years, people are only now starting to pay attention.
The current trespass laws are just too lenient. I don't think anyone has the right to break into anyone's property. If this continues, we're going to end up in a situation where someone will be hurt. When you're woken up in the middle of the night, how they protect themselves may be dangerous. I mean, most farmers have access to firearms and everything.
You think that's a real possibility?
I think it's a possibility, I do. And I think it's important that the government steps in and does something about it now before something like that happens.
Some activist tactics may be controversial, but the number of people across Australia adopting a plant-based diet is growing. And there's an increasing number of businesses catering to them.
Brunswick Street is what I like to call probably the vegan mile, like the most vegan-friendly street in the world.
Back in Melbourne, I meet Dan Pinney. Dan runs a tour of the city, which showcases vegan businesses.
Obviously, we'll start with Cruelty Free Shop. This venue has been here for probably about, I think it's about 18 months, this location, and it's now the world's largest completely vegan grocery store.
The first stop is a visit to a shop that sells plant-based cheeses and meats.
A lot of the different meats, burgers is probably the first place that people go, but as far as anything that would generally have either a chicken flavour to it, whether it be the chicken satay, they've even got spring rolls that have some prawn flavours in it as well. Your traditional Australian meat pies. Hi Bridget, how are we?
Next up is a vegan shoe store, where they sell boots made from a polycotton blend.
Miley Cyrus actually just bought a bunch of these.
I've joined the tour just days after the demonstration in the city centre and meet a new convert, Kyle, who's buying his first pair of vegan shoes. He says the protesters inspired him to watch the film they were promoting.
I thought I'd give it a shot. Got about half an hour in, and after many tears I knew, and disappointment in myself, I guess, I knew that my life was going to change for the better. You know, I was really upset at first, but I'm grateful to these people that protested, you know. It's very brave what they did.
So now you're going to become a vegan?
Yeah, I'm going to try and move towards that, yeah, definitely. That's why I'm here.
Wow.
Amazing.
Like any good tour, it ends with a meal. Over carrot hot dogs, salads and falafel, Dan tells us how he sees these tours as a softer way to encourage people to join the cause.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
These tours are our form of activism, effectively. We show people good food in some of the best places all around the city, and we show people that it is possible. That's our personality, and that's how we find that we have an impact on people.
Do you agree with some of those tactics, though, of going to farmers' properties and...
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree.
So this is your form of activism, but you're not opposed to other forms of activism, like the direct action?
Yeah, we're a really broad community, and people will take whatever approach suits them. And like, if they do that, I think the world needs all different types of people to do activism in different ways.
In the northern city of Brisbane, this group is taking it to another level with a vegan activist masterclass.
The workshop I'm going to be giving today is about how to talk with non-vegans about veganism, one-on-one or in groups. As most of you know, when you go vegan, you initially get attacked by a bunch of people who aren't vegan. So it's all about how to deal with that. We're going to start with body language. With a smile on your face. Just make it a natural smile, just like when you're seeing a friend. All right? It's very important to not criticize straight away. It's not a nice thing to be wrong. So if you don't want that to be done to you, don't do it to anyone else.
How do you respond to the questions and statements about why is it okay for us to think we're above the law? Why are we in the right to break the law with trespassing?
Well, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is, like, straight away you can start with, I understand why you feel you don't feel good about the fact that someone trespasses, and then you can bring up the fact that literally not a single vegan activist, especially here in Australia, that I know of, that the media has talked about, has actually hurt a human being while trespassing, you know?
While activists refine their techniques, the farming industry is feeling the effects. Back down south, we visit the town of Bendigo, where the weekly cattle auction is taking place.
I'll be 50, got that, you know, going from there with 250, with 2, 450, 4 starters, Marty. I'll be 250, 4 grand, 4 gone.
Nigel Starrick is a livestock agent who buys and sells cattle. He says protests have put farmers on edge.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot more caution taken in the way stock are handled and the way stock are presented, especially through the sale yards, just to be mindful of it, because no one wants to cause a bad impression when people come to sale yards and that sort of thing.
Farmers are extremely passionate about what they do and the care they have for their animals and the way they go about it.
Another agent, Glenn Ray, says farmers are often reluctant to speak up.
Farmers just like to get on with their jobs and do what they do really well, and that's farm, and it's very busy. Look, they're working 12, 14, 16-hour days, and I suppose they're not a really strong voice. I don't know if you'd say the activists are a minority group or what they are, but it's interesting with the activists is that they've got a really strong voice, which, yeah, maybe our farmers need to have that strong voice too.
And with their businesses under threat, farmers like John Gommans say they've got no choice but to dig in.
It is just a new reality, and it's based on naivety of the attacking group. Can't help it, can't change it, we're just going to protect ourselves.
Do you think that there is a future for animal agriculture?
Absolutely.
When do you think you would ever stop working on this issue?
On animal rights? Never. I can't imagine I can't imagine unless we have a vegan world sooner.
So is this what you want to achieve, a vegan world?
Yeah.
With farmers determined to continue their trade and animal liberation activists determined to stop them, the battle over Australia's farm animals shows no sign of letting up.